3, 2, 1, and we should be live.
Good evening, good afternoon, happy lunchtime, internet. We are the Beerumverate with episode number something.
It's 19, I think.
19.
I was counting the other day.
Yeah. And episode today's Oi, Microsoft, check out my specs. Yeah, I haven't been practicing that at all. So who we are? We are the Beerumverate. We're just we started off as 3, but now we've become Devastator, the most powerful Decepticon. So Mitch is on in replace of Evan, but that's okay because apparently he's from Wisconsin as well, and he's here to call me out on my bullshit. We are not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. Any beers or breweries we do talk about have not paid us, and if we do or don't like something, please don't take it as a recommendation. Go out and try and find something for yourself. Right, do we want to do rumour mill first, or do we want to go straight into any interesting beers?
Well, I just wanted to say one thing to you guys, which is, saying that you know what episode it is, that kind of ruins it a little bit for me, because I was hoping that we're drinking so much beer we wouldn't remember what episode we're on ever. It is just a running gag.
I thought about possibly never keeping track, but I was really curious because we've been on almost every week for a few months now, so I was like, I need to find out.
Or if not, we're just on beer number X, and that's not the episode you're on. That's just how many beers you finished throughout your time.
I like it.
No,
you can steal that. You don't have to pay me for it.
One thing before we get going. When I told my wife who I was recording with this week, she started humming the theme tune to Baywatch.
Baywatch? Where did that come from?
No one watches Baywatch.
Because I said I was recording with Matt and Mitch, and then that made her think of David Hasselhoff. So she was saying, does Mitch look like David Hasselhoff? And I said, no, he doesn't look like David Hasselhoff.
You ruined it.
Shit. Damn it.
You could have got her to watch the episode, dude. I think we should.
I was going for David Hasselhoff, like the hair,
everything. Yeah.
Doesn't flip.
I think we should go through some beers. This is a shout out to Alex Unsifted, who commented that he really likes craft beers. So today I'm drinking. It's another IPA. It's called Gypsy Fade. It's by Tenay Creek, which is my favorite brewery.
Again.
Yeah, which is right down the street. Are you just going to go through every single one they do? Yeah, and I'm actually when we're done with this and the archive actually goes up, I'm gonna at them on Twitter because they usually retweet my shit. So, but anyway, pretty good IPA. It's 6%. It's not a typical IPA. It's sort of a cross between a Tripel or a triple and an IPA. It's got a bit of a coriander flavor to it. It has a little bit of herbal spice, and it's not too bitter. It's only 59 IBU.
Okay. We should also mention we do talk about video games at some point.
Eventually.
Balls that intro up royally. Right, Mitch, do you want to go?
Sure. I gave my spiel about Liney's, and I'm still working on all the beers that I have from Liney's, so I'm just going on my next one. Actually, I should grab the other one on the ground. I have 2 of them with me, but I'm drinking one right now and one for later. But I'm doing the orange shandy. Yes, a fruit, McWomble, deal with it. It's probably their lightest beer that they have, I would say. And I'm more of a fan of a light beer than a darker, heavier beer, if anything. And then the other one I tried on the first episode I was on with you guys, but we didn't talk about beers at the time, so I thought I'd just grab it as a quick shout out. This is the new one that they're testing out. So they do a new tester every single season. So they always have the summer, the orange, and the canoe paddler, but then they throw in a 4th one as a new try tester. And then they either make it a regular beer in its own case for the entire time available throughout the year, or they just throw it into like special casings. So this one is a cherry blonde lager.
Interesting. Does it actually taste like cherries?
A little bit. It like all of them are not overpowering in regards to the fruit flavor. It's just a hint of it where you get that like just a little bit of a kick of it. It's never overpowering. It's very much a light beer, just combining a lot of different complex flavors. It's really hard to describe.
What do they class as a season? So is it twice a year or just once a year?
No, it should be four.
No, because it's Wisconsin. Sorry. There's 4 seasons in a year in Wisconsin, and because this is a Wisconsin.
Well,
thing,
there's 4 seasons everywhere. We
experience all 4 seasons up here.
Yeah, we call one autumn because it comes from an ancient German word, and you call it fall because leaves fall down.
That's true. We're very basic.
Yeah.
I have heard Americans refer to it as autumn, by the way.
Yeah. So is it? Have you tried framboise before?
I don't think that I have either.
So that's a Belgian fruit beer, and it's really fruity. So is it? So you saying it's not overly fruity flavored? Probably would be more to my liking than some of the ones you get.
It's nothing close to like a fruit cocktail of any kind. It's primarily beer, and then it just adds hints of different kinds of flavors. And yes, like the main flavor they talk about is like the orange shandy. You'll taste more orange than any other extra flavor in the beer, but it's not to the point where it's like, oh, this is like orange juice I'm drinking with a hint of alcohol or the beer.
Yeah.
No, it's primarily a beer with the hints of those flavors.
Okay, interesting. Right, so what have I got? I've got one probably from my favourite brewery of the moment, Beavertown. They always come out with really cool can art.
I love the can designs.
And what is it? It doesn't even. I just picked it up because I looked at the can. I didn't even think what it was. It just says IPA, and I kind of quite like I did when I was talking to Matt and Evan last time, where it just says Friday IPA, black lager. I like it when it just says what it is, but then doesn't give you a massive description of what it should taste like.
Yeah.
Really hoppy, very fruity with a bit of spice.
Oh, he's got to throw it away. It's fruity, guys.
And then kind of a bit kind of acidy.
Okay.
So it's clean. It's not like burning or anything, but it's very clean.
It hurts.
It burns.
Smooth.
It's strong as well. It's 6.7.
Oh yeah, that'll get you fucked up.
So yeah, I think I'll only be having one of those. But yeah, wow, really, really good. It smells quite heady, but you can actually, sometimes you can kind of get a load of hops in your nose, but then you don't actually taste them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not like that. So it's hoppy, but it's very clean. It's kind of quite sharp tasting. Very nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
Alex, you can if you watch this on the archive, you can tell us if we're reviewing things to your liking or not.
I'm no beer reviewer, so you can put in the comments, and I will not disagree at all.
I do much better in writing than trying to come off the top of my head verbally.
Yeah.
Right.
Same.
Should we go into regular feature or semi-regular feature?
Yeah, the rumor mill.
The rumor mill. Right. So Evan's not here, but he contacted me earlier on today.
Over an encrypted connection.
No, on Twitter. Just saying.
He even added Sony on the tweet.
Yeah. Saying that he'd been at a pop-up restaurant, and alongside him at said pop-up restaurant was a marketing executive at Sony Computer Entertainment.
Interesting.
And he was that interested in pop-up restaurants that he pitched it to Sony of Japan, saying that we should do this for E3. So we're technically not at E3, but we will be at E3. But it's going to be at George's flat somewhere in LA, and it'll only be for 6 hours on Monday night.
Very cool.
Who George is, don't know.
We'll find
He'll know
out.
when a load of Sony people just show up thinking that they're going to kind of flash mob E3 during. They'll probably do it on Sunday during Microsoft press conference, thinking that they'll get loads of attention, and then realise that no one cares.
I like it. I also heard some E3 rumors. I have an anonymous contact that got in touch with me, and he was saying that he spoke with higher up with the ESA, and they are thinking about splitting E3 into a consumer trade show and a corporate business trade show. And the business side of things will be here in Vegas. It'll actually be 2 shows.
Of course it will. So you can spend their corporate dollars at the corporate casinos.
Exactly.
Well,
It kind of makes sense.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to Vegas, so why not? I did hear one. I had to dig real deep on my sourcing. Like I have serious sources, guys. Like I was all week on this, even though I knew I was going to be on the show 2 days ago. I was on it all week. I got a hold of one of Jason Shire's sources, because he's been booming that EA coverage. And I got a source in EA. It told me they have a plan to have a big blowout for Jedi Fallen Order for E3 this year. So what they're planning on doing is they're going to be at Microsoft's press conference. They're going to sit in chairs, and then they're going to show a trailer using assets from the game. Using assets.
Of course.
It's not a cutscene, it's assets. And they're going to sit down and talk about how the combat is so heavy and great. And they think that's the winning formula to win E3 this year. That's gonna be the headline for Microsoft this year.
That sounds oddly familiar, Mitch.
Well, they said it worked so well when they did it a week ago. They thought, why not do it again? They said everyone loved it.
The problem is that's probably the most true of all 3 of those. The most troubling.
Well, and then I heard a side thing of like, if they think this goes well, which they think it will, they don't think they're just gonna show off gameplay. They're just gonna show off assets for the rest of the time and never show us gameplay, and it's gonna sell millions of copies. They're just.
Do you think the game is just gonna be you clipping assets together?
Oh, it's gonna be one of those, like combine the trailers, and then all of a sudden that's the game, and you pay $60 for it. And that's it. Like that's
sadly,
what 6 years
I'm
gives.
dumb enough to want to do that.
I think it'll sell no matter what they put out, to be honest with you.
No, yeah, exactly. It's gonna sell.
Right, before we carry on and get on to topic number 1, Mitch, are you a Star Wars fan?
I am a fan of Star Wars. I'd say I'm like an in-between between a general and a hardcore. Like I know a lot more than the general audience does, but I am no like hardcore person that knows every detail of Star Wars, but I do enjoy it. I actually like The Last Jedi as one of my favorites.
Okay, well, right. I'm just doing a quick poll of people who come on.
Okay.
So if you're going to be on the side of right, goodness, love, and everything that people hold holy,
don't let him taint your perspective on this question.
And think that
I know what he's going to ask.
And think that Matt is a complete and utter heathen by thinking that Solo is one of the better Star Wars movies.
I'm sorry, Matt.
All right, so you prefer Rogue One over Solo?
Oh my God, Rogue One is
Jesus.
phenomenal, and I am so sorry, but Solo, that was my first Star Wars movie where, like, me and my friends were like, this was it wasn't horrible, it wasn't trash, but it was like, man, that's not a great Star Wars movie.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
I like some elements in the movie. Don't get me wrong, but I left that theater going. I guess for me personally, I don't even like Han Solo. He's not my favorite character
Right.
in the Star Wars universe. So to have a movie about him isn't appealing to me to start. But
And then it being shit.
by the end of it, it didn't appeal me more to like him more than I currently did. I think the ending was probably the coolest part that had nothing to do with him.
All right, I will qualify why I prefer Solo over
No,
Rogue
you
One.
don't
No, it's
have
okay.
to.
Yes, I want to
No,
hear this. Go
no,
go ahead.
go on.
I'm not taking over the show, but I definitely want to hear this.
Because apparently I'm alone in my opinion. But ever since Disney took over Marvel and Star Wars, there's very few movies that I've actually not fallen asleep to. So the first Avengers, fell asleep during that. Rogue One, fell asleep during that. Solo is the first one that I was like actually awake from beginning to end, and I was like, okay. So that's my qualifier for why I think it's better than Rogue One, because I didn't fall asleep in the middle.
It's the sleepometer. That's what it is.
That's how, yeah, that's how I do it.
Oh my lordy. Oh,
Could
then
you
you're
have
gonna
just
sleep.
been-
You're gonna sleep right through Hellboy. That was awful.
Yeah, just the trailers for that look absolute garbage.
Oh, it was after I watched it. Okay, real quick. So after I watched it, my only issue with that movie was they jam-packed so much content into that movie that they just needed to pull away some of the content they were trying to push in some narratives and just go with a couple elements because it was working really well until they were jamming in a bunch of more stuff in it. And then you're like,
Okay.
this is way too quick to get to this conclusion, or way too quick to get to this moment that I'm supposed to care, but I don't.
Hellboy got more content than an E3 press conference.
That's true.
All right. Shall we dig into the main topic then, boys?
Can I do it again?
Well, hold on. I do have to say that when you wrote, we have notes that we get. If anyone doesn't know that, we write these notes down so that we can see them. I did not understand what the OI meant until you just said it about 10 minutes ago. So now, thank you for the clarification with the oi.
Oi, oi, Microsoft, check out my specs. So, overall, the initial impressions, I was a bit disappointed in what came out of the Wired article.
I'm disappointed that it was a Wired article. Like, why the hell did we find out that way?
I think this is perfect.
The reason that I'm disappointed is they didn't mention teraflops.
Yeah, indeed. I'm also disappointed by that.
And I think aren't teraflops the main thing now?
Well,
You
they
have to
were
mention
last
how
gen.
many you've got, how big they are. You've got to measure your flop against someone else's flop, otherwise it's just not important. And there's terror of them, which means, I don't know, either that they're terrifying, or that means that there's a number of them. And because the PlayStation 5 article didn't mention how many teraflops they had, I just couldn't take the rest of the article seriously.
It's because you couldn't take how many teraflops are actually in that machine, man.
Yeah, I couldn't.
When you find out, it's gonna blow your mind.
And
We've gone.
That's why I'm
We've gone from bits to flops to now
Yeah.
Ks. So definitively, the PS5 will have the most Ks out of any other console available on the market. There's 8 of them.
But Matt, did you want to kind of clarify now that I'll actually be sensible for a moment, only a moment? Clarify why you were a bit disappointed that it was a Wired article.
Well, I don't know. There's some majesty to, like when Sony or Microsoft gets up on stage and they reveal their console. Like, this sort of takes the wind out of whatever the hell they're going to do at E3. And on top of
They're
that,
not doing anything, so.
well, and on top of that, we know that it's not coming till next year, right? So it's kind of like, all right, so we heard about it. Great. We haven't really seen anything.
I've got a suspicion as to why it's not coming till next year.
Sure. What is that?
I think they could actually release the physical hardware sooner. But because I bet no one's had enough time to do a check on backwards compatibility, and if the dev teams have only had it for a minimum of a year,
right,
no one's had enough time to actually produce anything for it.
Right.
Which there's no confirmation of how long, technically.
Yeah.
It's all speculation of how long they've actually had it, because they didn't give us a specific amount of time.
No. So what was the exact phrase that you used?
It's been a while.
A while. Yeah. So
it's like
I'm
that
assuming
song. It's been a while.
I'm assuming that doesn't mean a couple of weeks. I'm assuming that means a significant chunk of time for people to actually get used to working with the OS.
Well, I think I think they probably had a dev kit ready for it when Microsoft revealed the X. I mean, they had to have been working on something during that time. Just Microsoft said, "All right, well, we're gonna beat it out of the gate and just release a new iteration."
Well, they said they started working on it 4 years ago, so that was before the X even came out. That was right after PlayStation 4 Pro. So right after, basically, they probably did PS4, worked on the Pro, and then they worked on the next one. It's probably that succession of what they've been, whether like how long they've actually touched.
Yeah, and you think
together.
how long would it take? Matt, you might know a bit more because you're a bit more tuned into the IT industry than I am.
Mm-hmm.
You think if they're producing proprietary SSD to go into the machine, the lead-in time for them to design it, get a build partner, manufacture test kits, refine it, and then manufacture end product to go into the actual machine, that's got to be at least a 3-year lead-in.
I have no idea how much time.
We'll get on that. Mitch has worked for an entire week to figure out that rumor, even though he didn't know he was going to be on till 2 days ago.
I don't think I know I can estimate how much time it would take to do that, but they've clearly already got hardware partners lined up and have for 30 years now, right? So
yeah, does Sony make SSDs?
I'm pretty sure they do, because they had like their own proprietary that memory card for the Vita, and like they
do. I should have Googled that before making that comment.
I was about to say I can Google it now, but you already did it, so.
Yeah, I mean they've got sort of that stuff in the wings, and I mean Sony being primarily a hardware company anyway, and for consumer entertainment, like they've got those concepts.
If they're going to manufacture them themselves, I'm sorry, I'm being a proper dickhead tonight.
No, it's all right.
I'm working on very little sleep. I'm terribly sorry.
And a few beers, so it's forgivable.
Well, not as many as I would like. Right, so please excuse my stupidity, and we'll go on to something else. Mitch, please say something whilst I wallow in my own shame.
I think it's really interesting because you're the one that's like, you're like, this isn't great. Berkough, you're like, why did they come out with this? Like, you're just
think this is freaking amazing.
I think this is a great way to talk about it, because here's the sitch, and I think this is what everyone's forgetting is Sony's not doing the same thing they did last year. So like, we can't, whatever they're going to do this year in regards to announcing content, releasing content, they're not doing the same thing as everybody else. So they can't just like, they're not going to be there at E3. So they don't have the opportunity to talk about the next console. And here we had Stadia talked about last month, and they're talking about the future of gaming. We had Microsoft right after just start saying, hey, we have the future of gaming coming up in another couple months. What's the better way to sneak in that conversation than go right in between the two when there's no one talking about the future of gaming and just say, hey, let's just put some feelers out there to say, hey, this is what we're working on. Look forward to more in 2020, so that people are not trying to overhype themselves going, oh, Microsoft's coming out with their thing at the end of the year. Sony's got to be doing something this year. And it's like, well, they're not. They're doing something different. And I think
also,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the way that they did it was that kind of not under the radar as such, but without the hype.
Yeah,
right.
I thought that was really smart.
It is. Read this. Like, this is what we're working on. And I think one of the coolest things about it, like specs aside, the thing I think is really awesome, and you know, it was even before Sifted, and before Sifted and Shane and Matt talked about some really cool ideas with this type of technology. But the 3D sound, I think, is phenomenal. And when I was reading that, it made me think of one game I played that I think is probably one of the best games I've played in this generation. Besides, I think God of War is the best one, but this one is like my number 2, number 3, which is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. That audio in that game is phenomenal. Like, I have never heard sound in any entertainment media like that before, that I could hear things like on the back of my head, through, like feeling like it was super close or farther away from my ear. The audio was insane. And to think of what you could do with a game in the future, and that's what they want to do, sign me up. I'm all board. Like, this is amazing.
Okay.
And if you have not played it, play it.
I picked up Hellblade in a sale, so I take it you played it with a headset?
Yes, they even say, like, right in the beginning, it's best recommended to play with headphones, and you got to do it. It's just like, even in their development diaries, which I found really amazing, which made me go, I need headphones for this. They literally took the microphone, put it in like a simulated, like they carved out an ear, like a human ear style, and they put the microphone inside the ear and then put it on a head. And then they had the people walk around and talk to the person, like talk to the head, so that they would capture the sound like you would in your ear, which is all 360.
Do you know who didn't do that? DICE. DICE didn't do that. Do you remember that, Matt? Fuck's sake.
Yeah, but to my first point, I think this is the smart way to do it. They're doing something different, and it's an easy way to sneak in without having to try to like compete with Microsoft during E3 time or right before E3 time. This is a perfect opportunity just to sneak it in.
Yeah,
let it go.
The one thing as well that I thought this was very clever piece of promo, because I wouldn't really say it was an interview, because it would have all been set up behind the scenes and said, here's what we want to talk about, and you can please ask questions along these lines, or those kinds of things.
Right.
But you're not going to E3. You know that your competitor is also working on something similar, but potentially slightly different tack, because Microsoft are going, allegedly, or the rumor has it, they're going more streaming focused. So we come out and say, no, here is your dedicated hardware gaming system.
Right.
And it seems from everything that they listed, or everything that Mark Cerny went through, makes it more and more seem like, no, this is a dedicated piece of hardware for you to play stuff on. Not stream stuff from a cloud, not take it from a Google hub in the middle of fucking nowhere and stream it to your fridge. And we're going to make this thing that you are going to have as good as we can possibly make it. The worry that I have is the same one as around, well, how much then?
Yeah. I think Matt Kyle was saying 500, right? He doesn't think that they can sell it for any less.
He said they wouldn't go over 500. He didn't say necessarily it would be 500. He just say you can't go over 500.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a bit much to ask. What was the PS4 at launch? It was $399, right?
$399. Yep, because Microsoft was $499, and that grew silence. And then Sony goes $399. Everyone rejoiced like at a church.
Well, I mean, it was the same thing that happened with the PS3, right? When they revealed it, it was
$599.
Yeah, it was $600. It was like, get the fuck out of here.
And I did pay $600 for it.
I waited. I actually bought mine used because I just couldn't justify it at the time.
I saved so much Christmas money, man. I was hustling. I was hustling to get that Christmas money.
So talking about kind of cold hard cash, given that we don't know how many flops, Terra or otherwise, are going to be in this thing, and I don't know where the flops are actually stored.
But there are octo Ks.
Okay, octo Ks. So there might, barring the lack of floppage information, how much would you actually pay? One, and two, would it be a day one?
Those are two ways. Okay, day one is all dependent on the games. That's the number one thing.
Well done.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that question without knowing what game is coming out and whether, like, hey, if Death Stranding comes out and it's like it's gonna run better and look better.
Death Stranding's never coming out.
Oh, that's BS. It's coming out.
I think it's going to be the trolliest of all of Hideo Kojima's trolliness.
Whatever. Anyways,
it's not a real game.
People are excited about it. Anyways, if it's going to run better, look better, that is a compelling argument, and it is going to depend on the price. How much would I pay? I probably would pay no more than $500 personally. I mean, obviously I cover games, so I'm probably going to hook up more if I need to pay for it to be able to cover it, but I cannot imagine them going over 600. Would probably be the max they would go. Could never see them go over.
Yeah,
so
it's not a day one for me. I usually wait a year for consoles just to make sure that
do you normally wait until Final Fantasy VII gets released on it?
That too. Ooh. It has to have Final Fantasy VII, otherwise I'm not going to buy it.
The original or the remake?
the original. It's a running joke on the show because I've bought Final Fantasy VII, the original, like every time it's been released, pretty much. But
I'll try to talk to Mark Cerny and see if he says it's going to be built into the console. So
it should be, you know.
I'll try to track down Jason Shire's source again and see if he knows about Mark Cerny.
You haven't got them locked in your basement now.
I tortured it out of him. Like, man, it was hard. It was hard to just get that one piece of evidence for you guys. Come on. It's going to take a couple weeks.
But
you need to rehydrate them and give them a blood transfusion or something.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think the 500 is probably the sweet spot. And even then, like if it doesn't come with at least one game at 500, I might think twice about it, even a year after the fact.
I don't see why I wouldn't. I even if it was like in a last gen game, just saying like, or it's God of War. You get God of War and it's going to be super remastered, like beyond belief. It's going to run more beautifully and look more beautiful built into your console.
So I bought my PS4, I think a year and a half after it came out. And it was the one bundled.
Pretty close to the same. Yeah.
And it was the one bundled with Last of Us. I fucking hate that game. But I was like, you know what? It comes with a game. So I'm cool with that, you know, and then I spent the money on it. So
mine came with Shadow of War. No, Shadow of Mordor. Sorry, Shadow of Mordor. I got even though I think it was about a year out after it first got released, almost a full year, and it helps having a game to like have the console with, to just be able to say I can pop in this disc, it's gonna play this game, it's gonna look good, it's gonna play good. I'm satisfied.
Right.
Well, I must be the dumbest out of the three of us, which on previous experience of this episode alone is probably true. Because I got my PS4 Pro a few months after it actually launched. So PS4 Pro launched in November. I got it at Christmas. So
I
a
did.
couple months
Well,
afterwards.
I did the same thing as you, McWomble. I did have a PS4, and then I upgraded a couple months after the Pro did come out. So I do have a Pro currently.
Yeah, but I just bought that, and it came with no games.
Yeah, that didn't come with any games.
Well, that's different though. You had a PS4 before though, right?
No.
Oh, all right, okay.
Because
And that was your mistake, McWomble. Like it's supposed to be an upgraded console, not your first console.
near bother. So I picked that up, but what I could do then is, because when that came out, rather than I'd done what Mitch did and saved up a heap of cash for a while.
You financed
Hustled
it.
grandma for some Christmas money.
Yeah. So, and I didn't know. I just went around boosting cars for a while. And by that point, the games were so cheap from the launch window of the PS4.
Right.
I could pick up a few games for $4.99, $9.99 to kind of tide me over until some of the new releases came out. Right, enough history. The future.
Yes.
So what do we think might actually launch on this thing? Because I don't think Death Stranding is going to be a launch title.
I think Ghosts of Tsushima is definite. I think that's going to be a launch title, but it's going to be straddled between both consoles.
Yeah, they said that everything's going to be backwards compatible between the PlayStation 5 and 4.
Right. I think they're going for the iPhone model going forward. So that'll probably be the case where you'll probably be able to play, games on your PS4 until just those games stop supporting it, and then whatever iteration of the console you're on, we'll be able to play everything back on a certain amount forward. I
wouldn't even call it the iPhone model, because to be honest, that's the model they've always gone through. It's just the exception of the PS3 because of that cell processor. Because PS2 could play PS1 games, some PS3 could play some PS2. But your PS3 can play PS1. So
I suppose
I wouldn't consider it an iPhone model. I think it's the same it's always been. It's just the PS3 is a hiccup in general.
Well, I think that it's more the iPhone model in the fact that your current PS4.
I'd say the PS3 was less of a hiccup and more like needing the Heimlich maneuver.
I'll be able to pick up Ghost of Tsushima and play it on my PS4, even though I don't have a PS5.
Yeah, but it won't look as pretty and run as nicely.
Right,
exactly.
exactly.
I see what you mean. Okay.
And load as quickly.
It'll be back-gen compatible with the
Right.
same disc.
It'll be both. Yeah, it'll be both. I think that's a possibility.
I think that'll confuse consumers too much.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be
I'm with Mitch.
I think they're going to be very plain and simple and say,
I don't think
you
so.
can play. I think that I mean, how would you? I guess the question is, and I think this is a big question, is how do you present it?
You don't. So
how do you present it in the box to say, hey, this is a PS4 and a PS5 disc?
Well, we've already moved to the.
And the simpler question is, how do you sell the hardware?
Well, that's
if you're not saying to someone that you can do this better, quicker, faster, or you can only play this one on this machine.
They phase out the PS4. They phase out the PS4 hardware.
They'd have to.
So that's the first stage.
But then the people on the PS that own PS4s are still going to buy those games to play an inferior version because they don't want to hawk up $500 for the new console.
But you have to think about the fact that 65% of the market now is all digital.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a question of me walking into a store and buying a disc and whether or not it's going to work on my machine. It's me booting up my machine, going to the store and seeing what's available. If that game's available, I'm buying it. Right.
Oh, okay. So you're going for a kind of, if you get, I don't know, Doom Eternal. and the day one patch for Doom Eternal on PS4 is 30 gigs, and the day one patch for PS5 is 80 gigs, something like that.
Right.
I
think that's what they're moving towards. Like,
that's where I would disagree. I think I disagree with you on that, only just because of, you know, I think 2 weeks ago I'd be in the same mindset as you, but what I've learned over the last 2 weeks, actually, something really, so I've learned that I value now physical media more than I ever did before, and that thought process is actually going throughout more and more people nowadays than ever before. Even people of my younger generation value the physical media more than we value the digital, because we know of how fragile digital is compared to having this physical thing. So I think
I'm there with you.
Yeah.
Like, I prefer physical media, but we are not the average consumer.
Right, but in the end, like, it's going to become extra confusing, because if you're going only in an online store, that would make total sense and that could totally work. But when you're doing a physical and an online medium, you're basically penalizing people to say you can't buy the physical PS4 version of this game, but you can buy the online PS4 version of this game in our online store. And I don't think I think there would be a major uproar, because it's extremely
it's
a way of what Sony's been doing.
Yeah, but
Sony's been the
where are you gonna go to buy games? GameStop's going away. They're gonna shut down eventually. It's only
Best Buy still gives you 20% off if you buy a game at their store.
Yeah, but it's only a matter of time before they phase that out too. Like, you know what I mean?
I think probably after this next generation, that's a possibility. But I don't think this next generation is not the place where it's saying we're going all online, because that's a Microsoft thing. And and Sony has made it very clear that they don't want to go that route.
Well, it's not.
They put a disk drive there in the first place.
It's not that they're making a declaration that they're going that way. It's just a trend. It's just a trend in the way that the market's working. Like, people are just buying more games. Plus, if you do PS Plus or PS Now, like, it's all on your console. You know what I mean? Like,
except for
they don't ship you a disc.
Garbage. The free games that you get with that are shit.
I don't disagree.
If you wait a while and don't buy a really hot ticket item, it'll be there in like 4 months.
And PlayStation Now, also rubbish. And the one thing I was thinking about as well, I think they're going to phase out remote play, because
they're going to create a new evolution of remote play that works a lot better.
They need to do something with it, because it runs like absolute shit. It runs like putting I don't know, lead through a garbage disposal.
But McWomble, so Berkough saying like this store style is where he thinks it's gonna go. I think they're gonna stay with the traditional style of there's gonna be a separate PS5 case that you pick up your game with if you could buy a physical version, and then if it's like a what is it, Shadow of Mordor, where they had a PS3 version and a PS4 version. They're two separate discs in two separate areas with two separate cases. I think that's going to be what's going to happen next year. I mean, not next year, next gen. Is that what you think is going to happen next gen?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then they'll do what they did and just kind of gradually phase the other stuff out.
Phase the last gen version of it out.
Yeah. And I can't think that Sony would be so monumentally stupid that they would go back to what happened to Microsoft when they announced the Xbox One and thought, you know what, that seems like a really good idea. So I can't think that they would backtrack on that, because they that's the reason why they have, was it 70% market share at the moment?
Right.
Yeah, I think they're just. I mean, I think they proved it with this presser. It very much, Mark Cerny mentioned that there is a disk drive on your console that I think they are hardcore saying that they are not changing anything that they've done before. That if anything, they're just going to add another new feature that if you would like to use, you can use, that they will support. But what you have known is not changing.
I think the interesting thing about the inclusion of the SSD drives is, so take Red Dead Redemption 2. So the install for that, even if you buy the discs, is 100 gig.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that thing is God.
Well, that's what I was going to mention.
Then
like,
you've got a patch to go alongside that.
Yeah, so, I mean, these days, the disc.
Even though you're buying, the disc is basically your key.
Well, it's not just a key. It's just, here's a large chunk of the data you don't have to download.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You know, it's like however many.
It's your local install.
I guess the other issue would be then if it's like the same disc and then it's just an upgraded day one patch. What if the person bought a PS5 and doesn't have accessible internet where they're not able to download just a regular like day one patch on a regular game, like the version they have on the disc, because of the rural area they live in, that it takes a long, like days for them to download speeds because they're in such a rural area. My dad was in that kind of area and he can't. He has to play the game based off how the disc is. He doesn't get a day one patch, so anything that bugs are there, they're there. So he can't, if he bought a PS5 and then say you have to download the patch to upgrade it to PS5, he can't do that. So he's going to get a PS4 version.
This is going to sound a bit harsh, but I don't think people give a shit. Not those people who can't experience the true experience that they want. Experience the content.
Well, I would agree with you on that.
Honestly, but I think if the corporate people, they literally do not give a shit.
Oh yeah, corporate side, yes, absolutely. I was going to say.
Okay, so how many people live in New York, and how many people who live in upstate New York who don't have fiber broadband? So we're looking at potential 8 million market and a couple of 100,000. Fuck those people.
Well, all right, think about it this way. So, Mitch, have you did you download and play Apex Legends?
No, I didn't.
Okay. When you download that game, there's a version of the game that runs. When you first launch it and play it, there's upgraded textures and things that download in the background. So when you first download that game, you launch it, you get a version of the game that you can play. As you're playing the game, in the background, it's downloading additional files. And it's keeping track of and making sure that the gameplay is consistent, and then whatever additional bandwidth you have is grabbing those high-res textures. So I mean that's a possibility too. So even though
but for how big these files are going to be, because it's a next generation hardware,
so
that's going to take a very long time for them to see the final results.
Right. So
and they're going to see a big difference.
But the technology is there. So
before we end up in violence.
I'm going to smack them from this screen.
Send you a virtual slap.
I think it's a good conversation. I think
it is. And I was just surprised because I just thought of this now, that my dad actually runs into this issue, and I just never thought about that until now, because I was down by his place and playing a game, and I was like, oh, you know what? It is a lower resed and not as nice running version of when I played it at my apartment.
So, Mitch, is your dad going to be purchasing a Xbox One S all digital?
My dad will not be purchasing a SAD, because he's not a stupid ass that decides to go into a boardroom and says, what do we name this? Let's name it all digital. Oh, and then someone doesn't think in their brain to go, doesn't that sound like sad for some reason? And doesn't raise their hand and say, hey, let's not be stupid now. We got the X bone in our corner right now, for better or for worse. But now you just want to add depression to it by saying we're going to call it sad? Like,
Or does
no
SAD
one.
stand for stupid ass decision?
That works
Oh
too.
my
I
gosh,
like
yeah.
that. Like, honestly, like we were talking about it earlier, I think the easiest thing they could have done is just named it digital, because everyone knows what digital means. We don't need the all in it. Why put all? All is a filler word. Like, just call it SD. It sounds cooler. It's like an SSD. It sounds cooler.
Yes.
Don't get it.
All right, so have we pretty much?
Mitch has got that email written to the marketing department already. It just needs to hit send.
They should have hired me. God damn it. They should have hired me.
Have we pretty much run down the PS5 stuff?
Well, I'd like to actually get onto a bit of the Expo and SAD, and maybe drop item 2.
Well, McWomble, I didn't hear your price. What was the price you're willing to pay for this thing?
See, I don't understand your foreign currency, is what it is.
Well, just in your pounds. Your pounds sterling.
In the pounds.
Sterling.
It's a premium currency, mate.
It's way more expensive.
Yeah.
I only remember pound sterling because at the conference when he was saying the $3.99 price point, at the end, whatever his name is that's no longer at Sony was just like, and in my native country, £4.99 sterling. And I just remember him saying it that way.
Oh God, what was his name? Can't remember.
He's the one that got Kojima to come to the Sony side.
Oh God, I can picture what he looks like as well.
Anyways,
I can't remember.
Yeah, but what you were saying. Never mind.
Well, I definitely wouldn't be paying $4.99 for it. I mean, how much did the PS4 Pro launch for? $429.
It was $499.
Yeah, so $429 here.
Okay.
$429. If what Cerny said, and then obviously I need to hear about the number of floppage.
Flopping around in there.
Yeah, I want to know how many flops are flopping around. Yeah, 429. Obviously, when they announce it, I'll start saving, because I wouldn't just be, oh yeah, chuck the readies at it. But yeah, I think that for what they're talking about, giving you as a physical item, I still think at that price they'll be taking a loss on it.
I think regardless, and whoever, like both companies are going to take a loss on their product. I mean, they sold more than they did of last generation's hardware, and I think they're going to they've made money off their consoles plenty.
Historically, Sony don't like doing it though. Not as much as Nintendo don't like doing it because they just refuse to in the first place.
Right.
But Microsoft are quite happy to sell you something at a loss on the basis that you will buy multiple subscriptions and whatever else afterwards.
Right.
Whereas Sony have said, here's our product. What do you mean you don't want to pay that much for our product? And then it's taken them longer to actually not use it as a loss leader. That's probably the wrong phrase, but think that if you can get something into someone's home, you're then intrinsically linking them into your monetization strategy that doesn't involve microtransactions and because you say monetization and everyone thinks, oh, season passes, microtransactions.
It's the ecosystem because they're getting a cut off all the games.
With the ecosystems
and everything
like this. The marketing speak really annoys me sometimes.
So as a segue into what you wanted to talk about Microsoft for a quick sec, I think this would be a great way to segue into it. Would be, do you guys think that with the trend that now we know that there's a trend, at least from the information we know Sony's not really changing their trend in regards to like. Sounds like they're sticking with the way they did things before in regards to like disc-based games. This is a gaming console only. And with the trend that Microsoft is now going, especially with the SAD coming out and it's all digital, and they've talked about, hey, Stadia announced their stuff. We got streaming stuff talking about pretty soon that they're going to go more online than they ever have gone before, which was what they were doing with Microsoft One, this generation. do you think they're repeating themselves a bit with their strategy of, and is it going to blow, is it going to end up biting them in the butt again this year? I mean, not as harshly, but is it going to hurt them more if they're saying we're going to push even more digital than we did last time?
I don't know. I mean, it could.
And at not that cheap of a price point. And I'm just using the SAT as an example. It's only $50 cheaper, but you can get an Xbox One S for the same price on sale.
Right.
So it doesn't even, you can't get a SAT. It's that the SAT's not a cheaper price point. At MSRP, it's cheaper, but no. But okay, go ahead.
We're sad about the sad.
I would prefer to have the drive just because I like having my collection of games. I don't own an Xbox currently. Like I had a 360 last gen. I haven't bought a bone. I don't know. Even with the backwards compatibility that they've added into the Xbone, I still haven't picked one up yet. So,
but do you think they're going on the same trend that they did this generation that may bite them in the butt again?
I'd refer you, my right honourable friends, to my previous statement of I don't think anyone could be that monumentally stupid to repeat that same mistake. And if they are, I can see.
But again, they didn't think they were when it happened, and they could think the same way again and still do it.
I don't think there's
just like
the
Jedi
same
Fallen
people
Order fell flat.
Yeah, the same people who aren't in place at Microsoft. However, so I don't think the same decision will get made because Phil Spencer's got much more control about decision making on policy for Microsoft Studios and the Xbox division. If whatever the next box does and doesn't do well, I'm actually a bit worried for Xbox because it doesn't make as much money as the rest of Microsoft, and it doesn't make as much money as corporate Microsoft would want it to. So that's why I think you've seen the shift to the subscription model, so they can say to, look, here's our ongoing revenue stream, not it's just sell thing, royalties from software. Here's our ongoing revenue plan.
And to your point, that would make total sense because they've done this transition where you can buy the subscription service of Game Pass and combined it with your Xbox Live with Gold at a cheaper, reduced price. So that's my only addition. You can keep going, but I just thought that kind of served your point of that sense of why they're going in that, like how they feel like they need to go in that direction.
There's that, and then there's also the fact that you can play both Xbox One exclusives on your PC and your Xbone. And they're talking about bringing Live to Switch, so that's going to change things too. Like they're moving more towards a service model than a hardware model.
Yeah, and that's where I think. Well, Microsoft have always really been a service model, and the Xbox was kind of the outlier on that one. That was the exception rather than the rule. And I think some of the corporate decisions that may be made behind the scenes, I haven't tortured anyone to get this information. Only Mitch does that. I think some decisions behind the scenes are like, do we really want to be in the hardware space, because we got schooled on that not so long ago.
But so they owned it not so long ago either.
Yeah,
and I think the difference is they owned it because they were thinking as a game manufacturing console and competitor first, rather than a service model, is what you're talking about, which is what they tried to do earlier with servicing to your television with your TV, servicing to your music on your television, servicing everything to your home console, compared to just saying, let's just make a kick-ass console that plays games, which is what people buy our stuff for.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people at Microsoft actually get that though.
And so that's why I asked, do you think they might repeat that because they still are trending in a service model compared to, say, because yes, they may have bought all these studios. Yes, that's great. I'm so happy that Ninja Theory gets to work on a cool new game. Like I said, I loved Hellblade. But it's just interesting to think about are they still sticking with that service model going into streaming, going into the next generation? And is that going to not appeal to the gamer that wants to buy a console that just plays games, and they're willing to drop that much money for something that just plays games great?
I think Microsoft are going to follow the EA strategy, personally, which is they bought all these studios, but then they'll cancel all their games and then shut the studios down.